Hello and welcome to the Peru Travel Podcast. I'm your host, David Kozlowski. Alongside of me today is my little brother, Marco Solorzano Ariano.
That's right.
That's right. I said it right, too. If you don't know, I got a little brother and an older brother, actually, Emilio and Marco. Marco's the younger one, and he recently traveled with us to Peru. And it was last year, actually, during all the thick of the COVID. And we've got some great content that we're going to be talking about. I wanted to get Marco's opinion on Peru and the trip because it's a different perspective, and at the same time, I think Marco adds a lot of value being Hispanic. If you don't know, and he spoke Spanish, so he's going to hold me accountable in my horrible Spanish speaking skills. And yeah, we're excited today. We're going to be talking about Manu.
Yep.
And we're going to start with Manu, and then we're going to progress through all the different places that we went to. I think we hit a lot of Peru. There's still some areas of Peru that we want to get to, but they're going to be saved for some other trips, hopefully in the future, as maybe this becomes something that we can do more full time. I am going back to Peru in a couple months. I don't really know. Actually,
June?
No.
Was it May?
It's coming up in 2 months. I know that. And I don't know, February, March, April. Yeah. So it'll be in April. I'm going to go meet a friend of mine, Christian. I'm taking my fiance which I got engaged. And then I'm taking, or Kevin is going, and his wife, he just got married. Crazy how life has changed literally since the last podcast episode.
Yeah.
But obviously we've got our, this is a side hustle. If you don't know, the Peru Travel Podcast and our small business, Cachi Life, which helps support a family in Peru and has grown to helping a small community. If you haven't booked your Peru travel trips, hopefully you book through Cachi Life to help support the cause and what we're trying to do for sustainable tourism in Peru. The next trip when we go down to Peru, we'll be doing kind of similar stuff. A lot of folks haven't made it there yet. Christian's got a longer trip. He's from Germany. He's going to be spending, I think, 2 to 3 weeks down there. And myself will be only going for about 10 days. I'm going to go see David, see Christian, hang out with Kevin and friends, take my fiance who's never been there. I want to do some days in Lima because the culinary is just amazing. And then obviously, or not obviously, but rather we are going to try and get on the Inca Trail because it's just one of those things that the first time I did it, I think I talked about it, it was difficult for me. I didn't enjoy it to the best of my ability. While it was a beautiful place, now I want to go back and then take a different perspective and enjoy it even further. I think we talked about potentially doing a podcast on there. I don't know if it's going to happen on this trip, but I am going to try my hardest to, almost like a physician, dictate the trip into a recorder and try to write, basically transcribe it and write potentially like an ebook or some sort.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, just kind of show like every day what I was thinking, what the thought process, what I wish I would have brought, maybe in just a day by day I-10 of like, this is what I was experiencing. So be on the lookout for that if you haven't booked your trip. But today we get into Manu. And Marco, do you have anything to say before we get into this?
Actually, Manu, it was my favorite part of the trip. And it's not for the reasons you would think. Like, it's not like I enjoyed myself the most during that specific trip. It was the one that I've remembered the most, and that's the one I'm going to remember the most. And it's because of specific things that we'll talk about briefly.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear it because I think for Manu, for me, was not my favorite part of the trip.
Right.
It was very difficult for me. At the same time, there's a beauty to it, right? Just like everything. But yeah, let's go over how we got to Manu. So let's back up a second because what are expectations of going to Manu? If you don't know, it's the rainforest. What we expected was this, I want to use these words loosely because when I say beautiful, it was beautiful. But what you envision is like, the Jungle Book or Tarzan and like, like this jungle, and you have an idea of this fake reality of what nature is, and that's what you assume it is going into it. And while there is definitely a beauty to it, we weren't really prepared to the best of our abilities of how to make this trip enjoyable. So learn from us to a degree.
Yeah, and definitely take mosquito spray. Please do take mosquito spray.
Yeah, we brought it, and we definitely had malaria tablets, but it still just was tough. I mean, you're sweating so much. I think that's probably why. But you know what? So let's start into getting there. So when we originally got to Cusco, we had our excursions with the educators for Educating with Cachi, and then we we're asking David and literally bugging him. He'd been trying for months to get a lodge in Manu for us. If you don't know, David is one of the owners of Cachi Life in Peru. He is the local that we met on an Inca Trail tour years ago. And he is an amazing man, super passionate about his community in Peru. And yeah, nonetheless, there's the pitch on David. He's a great guy. And David was searching high and low to try to get us into Manu, and he couldn't. And when we had the conversation, I was like, we have to figure out a way to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And David ended up finding a driver. We negotiated a price and we were like, all right, we're going to go do this. But none of the lodges were open due to COVID. They weren't sure how many people were actually in the area. And we were like, all right, well, let's try to figure it out. Let's take the drive down there and we'll just figure it out when we get there. So we drove, and this quote driver supposedly knew about Manu and where to take us. Couldn't have been further from the truth at the time. But David and I and Marco and this driver got into an SUV, and we started driving one early morning. The drive was amazing. Went through little towns. We went through like this area where it was like the divide between the Cusco region and then the jungle region. It was a beautiful ride. And we went through like some areas and some turnbacks, I would say, where there was like waterfalls flying down in the road.
They would hit the top of the car.
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, we had a blast just
to drive there.
Yeah, it was cool. And I will say the only crappy part about driving in Peru, because we did the whole Gringo path, is there's not a lot of restaurants along the way. So you got to kind of plan ahead and making sure you got good food and our sandwiches packed or something that you can eat. And
yeah, they're long drives.
They are. Yeah, it's not like the States or Europe where you can just drive and pull off into a gas station and grab snacks. There was a lot of times where we were like, when are we going to hit a town at some point here?
Yeah, at one point we stopped by a little house or lodge, but this was locals. It wasn't a tourist area, and the locals were like, "You guys want something to drink?" Like,
yeah.
And we were like, "Yeah, we'll take it." They like gave us. I took a soda. They had waters and stuff. It was,
I forgot about that, but there was also a rock formation that was there.
Yep.
Where you could see a face, if I'm not mistaken, in the rock, and they said it was like Jesus or something.
Yeah, and we took the drone.
To
try to look at it.
Try to get a photo.
I was like that.
I don't see a face, but that's cool. The kid was there was a little kid running around too. It was fun. It was a good time to just see some locals, and they hadn't seen travelers for a very, very, very long time at the time of seeing them. So that was pretty cool. And we ended up getting to a village that was near a river, and across the river was the jungle. And originally when we get to this town, it was pretty, I mean, it was impoverished would be maybe the right word.
Yeah.
Like it was not in the best condition. So we were walking through the village and trying to find, someone who could just drive a boat. And at this point, and how can we get across to the rainforest? Thinking, we got all the tools, we got tents, we can figure it out.
Yep.
And we ended up meeting a boat driver who was a really nice guy. It was going to show us like this bird trip that he used to do, and unfortunately, we just didn't end up going with him. We decided that the place that they were telling us to stay, I've been in some pretty rough conditions, and this was beyond the most extreme conditions I've been in, which I feel like are pretty tough. Some of them I've been into.
Yeah, like that guy, his place, it was all wooden floors. There's a lot of chips on the wood floor. It was very humid. It wasn't very well taken care of, and there's no AC. There's no anything, like even like showers, no hot water, barely any running water. It was tough, like even for me. And I grew up in Mexico, and I've visited like very rough places as well, and this was kind of rough.
Yeah, it was, and that's not to talk bad about it. I'm sure for some people it would probably work. For us, we're just like, I'm not gonna sleep on the floor and have bugs crawling all on me at night. So without a tent, at least, right? And so we ended up going to the nearest town and walking to try to find like some sort of hotel. And this town was a level up, we'll say, economically. And we ended up walking the street and asking for a hotel, and all of them are closed. And we're like, do you guys know of like a guide or like a hostel or a home we can stay in? At this point, we're like, we just need a house, like
Mhm.
wherever we can sleep. Otherwise, we have to go back to Cusco. We're so tired. And finally, Marco
Yeah,
ended up,
we were about to give up. We were like, all right, we're gonna drive back. I was like, let me ask this one guy. There's these three guys in a table playing domino.
yeah, something like that. They're playing a game.
They were playing something, and I go up to him and I'm like, hey, by any chance, like, do you know of anybody who could take us to across the river, or if they have a hostel or something? He's like, well, there's one guy right now, one guy. I'm like, oh, can you get a hold of him? He's like, I'll call him over. We're sitting in the steps of this restaurant, and from the distance we see this guy walking in the middle of the road. If you could picture a Italian Jack Sparrow, that was what this guy looked like. And not even kidding. And he was Italian, he had green eyes, he had light skin. We were like, whoa, this guy, he was hardcore Peruvian in heart. Like, he loved that place. He came up to us, he talked to us. He's like, yeah, we have a place, we have hot running water, tents, a place. And yeah, I also did the tours in Manu. So I'm like, oh, we're like, okay, I guess let's do it. We had a talk. We were like, should we do it? Should we do it? We just went like, yeah, let's just do it. It
Yeah, I
was
mean, it
good.
was it was definitely an interesting experience because he kind of sounded like a hustler. Not gonna lie, he was like
Mhm.
really pushing. It was a bit more expensive. I know we paid the most out of the group for whatever reason. I think it's because we're last minute. Because when we got there, Marco had mentioned no AC. There wasn't AC at any of these places, right? But the place that we went to was good. It was nice. We got to go on the second floor, pitch a tent, sleep in our sleeping bags, sleeping pads, etc. It was nice. There was running water. That was a big deal. We
Mhm.
were pretty excited about that. And then we met. Well, actually, so we ended up agreeing on a situation and how we're going to make this work. And I'm sweating bullets right now because I'm like, man, we are running low on funds. We got to get back to Cusco at some point, or excuse me, get to Lima. But we're going to make it work. So we end up agreeing, and I want to mention one thing before we talk about getting to the house. Okay.
Okay.
So we forgot on the drive to Manu, there's a possible chance that you will run into a home zoo. This guy has built a zoo in this area. And if you're a Spanish speaker or you follow TikTok and you follow Spanish speaking TikToks, the zoo is actually went viral,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah. A couple months ago, I was just going through TikTok, and dang, I recognize this guy. And I'm looking at him, he's smiling, and then the spider monkey comes. I'm like, I know that monkey. I know this guy. We met him. And it
Yeah.
was during the trip going to Manu. Yep.
Yeah, there's a fair amount of birds that it was a from what I understand it's like a rehabilitation center type zoo.
Yep.
So he's got and I don't know the details, but he's got a spider monkey, a couple of different animals. There's not a ton, but it was cool. We went and checked it out and got to walk around the premises and yeah, we ended up now going back. We're gonna go forward. I just want to make sure we didn't forget that. So you will go.
Mhm.
You do have a chance to go to like a really cool little zoo and see some animals up close and personal.
You'll see that on the video. We'll release a video for Manu, and we have that in there.
Nice. We don't have a video for Mono yet.
Oh, it's already out actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's on the video.
Cool. So then now we're talking about we just met this guy, this Italian guy with the green eyes who looks like Captain Jack Sparrow.
Mhm.
So we're walking to the house, and all of a sudden there's another white guy.
Ooh.
And it literally blew all of our minds. Like Dave was like, I haven't seen like any travelers since you guys. And his name was James. And James was probably this like weird highlight of the trip because it's so random the whole situation with this
random.
guy. Yeah. So we ended up like hanging out with James and we went and got dinner at this local like hut type thing. It was
Yeah,
like
it
a
was
lady's house.
yeah, this lady's house. She was just
Yeah, she
cooking.
cooked us food and we got to eat there, which was awesome. Got to hang out with James, get to know him a little bit. He's from the US. He's got dreads, he's got a dreaded beard, and
If you can picture a Californian Jack Sparrow, that's
everyone's Jack Sparrow that's white to Marco is what it comes
well,
down to.
you know what? He kind of looks like Jack Sparrow. Come on. He even acted like it a little bit, but we loved James. He was very cool, charismatic, and I mean, we were excited to just at least have another person there with us.
Yeah. Well, and then the next morning, actually, before we took off to our first little adventure, so we spent the night. The next morning, we ended up meeting our main guide, and we were doing this little adventure to see some birds. It was like this hiking trail that we took. There was another gentleman who joined us from the States. Left his wife in Cusco, I believe. He came out to Manu. He had like I want to say a science background because he was in love with the rainforest.
Mhm.
He was great to have along because he had a ton of information and he knew a lot more about this stuff than either of us did. And it
Mhm.
was great just to hear his insight and just watch his excitement too. It was like a little kid seeing everything. He was like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing."
Yeah.
So anyways, we went and did a little canoe trip.
Yeah, it was just made out of wood. It was a little boat. It was kind of sketchy when we got on it. We were like, "Oh, is this gonna hold us up?" It did.
Yeah,
And
and Marco had all his camera gear, so it was pretty.
oh yeah, I was like sweating.
Yeah.
But the guy who took us, he was the guy that, it wasn't the same guy, the Italian Jack Sparrow guy. This was another guy who took us to this area. And if you could picture a Peruvian Rambo.
What are you doing? Putting all these people in holes,
Hey,
man, or in boxes.
I'm trying to give people imagine like an image of
You
this
can
guy.
imagine Captain Jack Sparrow twice on your trip. That in itself. And you can picture Rambo.
Well, this guy had a machete. He looked kind of like Rambo. Peruvian, of
He did
course.
not look like
And
Rambo.
you know what? And like it was cool. We went through this area. It was rainy. It was super early in the morning. I think it was like 5 a.m.
Yeah.
And all these birds and all these monkeys that you hear in the distance. And it was super relaxing actually, just floating on this boat, hearing the rain hitting the swamp water, and it was really cool.
Yeah. And I think it was a river, but
Was it a river?
yeah, because it definitely went out because there was fishermen that were out that were coming in that passed us. Do you remember that?
Oh
On
yeah.
another wooden boat.
It was very slow river.
Yeah, so it was I don't know what the term is, but like there's a main river and then it obviously went out to where we were. So
Mhm.
it like branched off. Uh the We ended up going and climbing up a tower to overlook the area, which was really beautiful too. It was almost like a fire watch tower, but that was pretty neat being up there. And then we got back down. We ended up walking back to camp, packed all of our stuff, packed up food, and we got on a back of a truck
Oh
or
yeah.
something, hanging on, and got to a boat where we wanted to cross the river into the Amazon.
Yep. This was kind of also sketchy, but not really because the river that we crossed was super fast. This river was so fast, boy. I don't even know. Like we got in this
Boy, I don't even know.
we got in this boat full throttle. All right, the boat's just going right. Well, we were barely moving, even though we were going full throttle against this river. It was very cool.
Yeah, and it was a little terrifying because it was kind of questioning if we were going to make it across. But
Yeah.
this guy was just killing that engine, and we ended up getting across. The only way to describe this, by the way, is we are in this insanely fast river with this small propeller and small engine, and it's literally doing everything it can to get us upriver to get to the area we need to get to. So I don't know if that correlates, but it was kind of terrifying because the boat could have easily tipped over at any given point.
Mhm.
We ended up getting to where we need to get to. We get off, and this guy has like a home. He's kind of created, not really a home, but like an area, like kitchen area. It's all outside. He's got a roof, and we're walking up, and Marco gets to see his favorite object on planet Earth. And he freaks out. He's like, "This is the best place ever. I want to live here." And we end up going up the stairs to where you sleep, and it was
He's talking about limes, by the way.
yeah. Marco got to see a lime tree. That was a big deal.
Yeah, there's limes everywhere.
Yeah, there's limes. There's a banana tree, and
There was even cilantro. What do you call it? Cilantro?
the
right?
plant growing. I
Yeah,
didn't know that.
it smelled, and I was like, "Whoa, this is crazy." I was excited about that too.
Yeah, so we ended up hanging out. We ended up packing up or unpacking all of our stuff, putting it in the tent that was there provided for us, and on the floor was a lot of guano.
Guano, yep,
Yeah.
which is bat poop.
Yeah, so we knew we were in for a treat that night. I will say instantly, the second that we got there, all the bugs, ants everywhere. I mean, this place, it's not an exaggeration to believe that everything in the jungle just kind of wants to kill you to a degree, if
It's
you're
true.
not ready for it.
Yeah.
And there was this thing I read a long time ago. Who knows if this is true? So don't quote me on it. But uh, they said something. It said something along the lines of diseases typically are in swampy areas, and that the longer lifespan in the past, like we're talking long time ago, real scientific here, that in the mountains that people lived longer due to less diseases, mosquitoes, malaria, things of that nature. So when you go from Cusco, where it's the air seems super clean. There's no humidity, there's no bugs, to down to the swamp, basically, the Amazon. It was a bit of a change. And David, it was so funny because he just kept being like, I'm a mountain man. This is not where I want to be. This place is horrible, but I'm glad we're doing it. Like, I'm glad we're experiencing it, but I miss the mountains, right? I remember leaving being like, I think I'm a mountain man too. Give me the elevation before you give me this.
Yeah, no, it was definitely different, and no showers,
Yeah.
and everything's trying to kill you. Even when we went on the walks that day, through the forest, the jungle, I mean, we have this Peruvian Rambo guy with the machete breaking through like the leaves and the mini trees and all this. The trees, there's some trees which grew in a weird way, like the trunks look like like snakes, and I'm like, dang, even the trees are trying to scare you here.
Yeah, it was really interesting. Some of the things that we saw on our nature hike, we'll say, was like we saw ants that would form a massive gathering going across and up a tree or across the path. That's pretty neat because pretty neat. Anybody's ever seen nature walk? Like that is what I'm referencing when I say that's pretty neat in nature. But it was cool to see monkeys swinging through the trees above you, birds everywhere. It was magical to a degree, but definitely a degree of like, I'm sweating, I'm wet, the rain doesn't stop. And then when it does stop, it's just hot and you wish for the rain again. And yeah,
At one point, I was kind of like, freaked out just because of all the bugs and things that we were seeing. And David grabs a branch, tickles the back of my neck. Dude, I screamed and jumped so loud. I was like, what is that? Oh, I turned around. I'm like, oh, David.
yeah.
They were just dying laughing behind me.
Yeah, at one point we ended up getting back to camp, and I mean, there's really no other description, right, of the jungle. It is what you think it is. Go watch Nat Geo, because the way to describe it, it's just thick trees. It's beautiful. It is gorgeous. We just didn't have any way to really like feel clean throughout the 24 hours that we were there, and I know we didn't stay long. But so keep that in mind where we were. Does not mean there are lodges. There are lodges that you can stay in the rainforest where you get a shower. You get, there's like Mila tanks on the roof, and you can, there's water of some sort. So
yeah, let's keep in mind that this guy was not expecting tourists. This was not a
right,
time to be there. So that's why it was so kind of like unprepared-ish.
right. Yeah. So long story short, though, we ended up getting back to camp, and all of a sudden they're freaking out because they saw a jaguar.
Yep.
And the
Puma.
dog is, the dog is, you remember the dog's name?
Also.
Oso. And Oso was terrified, or like they were freaking out because the jaguar wants to kill the dog in a sense, right?
Yeah.
Or eat it. So we end up looking for this jaguar.
We see like this guy, this Rambo dude, he was like inspecting the ground, like, oh, this is like where it went, and you could see the paws, like the jaguar's claws or whatever in the dirt and mud. And we're like looking for this jaguar. And we're going through this part where it's just full of leaves. We're walking super silent, trying to be sneaky. All of a sudden, I hear Puma! Like right behind me. I hear like galloping behind me. I start freaking out. I look back, and it was the dog also just coming. And it was David who screamed that.
Yeah, it was funny. That was that was a good time.
I had a couple scares this trip.
Yeah, no, Marco's easily scared though, so just keep that in mind. But yeah, we ended up going to our dinner in the rainforest. We had a great dinner. Ended up relaxing, kind of just talking to the locals, about the individuals that were there kind of helping out, just about what it's like working in the rainforest, why they love it, their passion for it. And just, I kind of get on a culture kick, but just hearing what they had to say about it was pretty cool. They got to meet a lot of the natives that live in or I'm saying it wrong. You're gonna shun it's not natives, it's something else.
Mm-hmm.
The individuals that live in the rainforest, and hearing their interactions with them was pretty cool, and how they honestly just they all work together to some degree. Very, very interesting, and very different, interesting culture. Ended up getting to hang out with James a lot, watching him play chess. This is gonna come up in the future, but watching him play chess on his phone. He played chess every day on his phone, a couple
Mm-hmm.
times a day, and yeah, we ended up just kind of hanging out, chilling, talking with James, and ended up hitting the hay, passing out, and I slept great.
I didn't. So at one point, I like wake up in the middle of the night. I'm like, boy, I have to go pee. So I like get out my phone. I turn on the flashlight. I'm about to like leave this tent. I open the tent. I look out. I look up, and there's like 1,000 bats like over us, and they all looked at me as soon as I peeked my head out. I was like, nope. Went back in, closed the tent, and went try to go back to sleep.
Yeah, and before we slept, it probably didn't help our nerves, but we saw a spider on our tent, and I was like, "Hey, is that poisonous?" Because you have to knock your shoes out every morning or before you put them on.
Mhm.
And he's like, "Yeah, a little bit."
A little bit.
And I was like, "Oh my god, I gotta get out of here."
Yeah.
So we ended up probably the most interesting part of the trip. We ended up getting back to camp, and we're like, "All right, we're gonna go home the next day." We ended up getting a shower. Our driver's gonna come get us, and our driver comes back, and his car is loaded down. I mean,
Mhm.
tons of stuff in the back, tons of stuff on the roof. Like, he went shopping.
We're like, "What?
Yeah,
Where did he go?"
it was weird. And we ended up driving through. I'm gonna keep this kind of short because just for the sake of time, we end up stopping at a checkpoint where he gets out of the car, and David goes, "We need to cover up the coca leaves in the back." And we're like, "What?"
At that point, that's when I'm like, "Oh, that's what that is."
Yeah.
Like, I didn't know.
So David's like, "It shouldn't be a problem, but I think our driver has more coca leaves in the car than legally allowed."
Oh my god. Yeah, I was like, "Well, okay."
Yeah, and he ended up passing the police officer a sugarcane reed, which I just still assume that was a sugar reed or a sugarcane reed or rod or whatever. And Marco was like, "Nah, there's probably something in it." But
It's just weird.
it was weird. The whole situation was weird. How the cop just let us go, but and it's just bizarre. And David was so kind and was like, "Oh, it's his friend," and we're like, "Yeah, okay, sure, whatever." We ended up getting back, and through discovery, we kind of realized that he had over the limit. You can have a kilo per person in the car of coca leaf. He probably had more. This doesn't mean that it was intent to make cocaine. While it's definitely possible, the real intent is more than likely that he was going to sell it in the market, and
Mhm.
sell the extra coca leaf because it is legal, and it's just hard to potentially come by. So
Yeah.
that's kind of what we think. That is the story, but granted, at the time, we were like, "Oh man, stuff's about to go down."
Yep. Yep.
So either way, it was a great trip and a great journey. And I do want to not discourage anyone from going. Our experience was pretty last minute, pretty bleak, and it wasn't probably the best experience that most would have. And I say that because you're probably going to get a lot more things that we got, right? We kind of had a last minute excursion. We met a great guy. We met a great guide, had some great culture experience. And we got to say that we got to see Manu, which was pretty sweet. So
Yeah.
I hadn't seen some of the monkeys before, and I got to see those in their wild habitat. But I will say, when it's all said and done, I'm a mountain guy more than I am a jungle person.
Oh yeah. And in the video, you'll see a monkey jumping on David's shoulder, and he freaking out.
Yeah.
So that'll
Yeah.
be his freak out story.
Yeah. I don't do well with quick moving things that I can't. Yeah. Yeah. And listen, I guess I'll just kind of leave it on the James thing. We do end up somehow reconnecting with James later on, which is so bizarre.
Oh, we reconnect with him a couple times.
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy how the world works, how small it is, rather, because we met him there and then saw him again. And then it's nuts. So we'll definitely touch on that later on. But either way, I don't have anything else to talk about Manu. if you want to check it out, reach out to us. And for all your Peru needs, if you want to reach out to us, email us, reach out to us, info@cachilife.com. Marco is actually the one who's handling all of our customer success, or is customer solutions. It's the corporate in me.
Ooh.
Customer solutions. Nope, there it is again. Customer service, and also handling all of our sales stuff now. So, and our older brother, Emilio, is going to be helping out soon, kind of making this into a family thing, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Kevin's family too. So
That's right.
brother from a different mother. All right. Perfect. If you have any questions, reach out to us. Join our Peru Tips for Travelers Facebook group. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Peru Travel Podcast. I'm David Kozlowski.
And I'm Marcos Solorzano.
Safe travels. Bye.